Season 6 of the Day Camp Pod is winding down, and as we laser focus on the daunting job before us, this episode, Sam and I debrief our ACA trip to Washington, D.C., and then touch upon this season's episodes with some important follow-ups. We're so fortunate to have been able to speak with so many smart, awesome people and share valuable wisdom and best practices with the day camp community. So kick back and enjoy this pod, and we'll touch most of the season's episodes, which you'll then probably want to go back and re-listen to or listen to for the first time if you haven't already. This is the Day Camp Pod. Welcome back to the Day Camp Podcast. I'm Andy Pritikin, the director of Liberty Lake in the Philly suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
And today is a special podcast with the two of us talking about a whole bunch of stuff, that we recently just did, and then talking about some highlights and some follow-ups from the season. So, Sam, it was so great to see you. We saw each other so much this off season, right? We got to see New Orleans, Atlantic City, Washington, D.C., and then a whole bunch of episodes of this podcast. It's like, holy mackerel. And for those of you that don't know Sam Thompson well, I just want to tell you that, she's this grandma, and she's been doing, this camp thing for a long time at rec program. And of course, she worked other camps before that. And we all know that she's got great ideas and she does really cool stuff. But what you guys don't really understand is she's a little bit of a party animal too. She's actually got a lot of get up and go. And when we were in New Orleans, it was just like, come on, let's go. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it was like, oh boy, who would have thunk it? So
there was a lot of opportunity there.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. And I got to meet your buddy Kat from Illinois.
Yeah.
Who's super cool. Got to see her again in Illinois. So I want to talk about the Washington, D.C. thing. So for those of you that didn't know, ACA, and when I say ACA, it's a national organization, okay? And it has a legislative group that's spearheaded by my buddy Scott Brody and this amazing human named Andy Schlensky, who runs, I think, a sleepaway camp in Wisconsin, but lives in Chicago, where he has a whole bunch of businesses in Chicago, like daycares and things like that, and whose wife passed away. And so he does this thing with his daughter where every single year they go to a different country for 6 months, and she enrolls in the school. Yeah. So they were just in Argentina this past year, like Patagonia and stuff like that. Yeah. So super cool, awesome guy. Maybe one day we'll have him on here talking about entrepreneurialism. So anyway, these guys organize these visits to the nation's capital with the legislators, the legislative offices, let's say, of House of Representatives and Senator people. And then we show up, Sam and I want to say like 85 others from all across the country. And we go into these offices and we schmooze with these camp people. Pretty darn cool and pretty darn interesting. Now, we don't get to talk to too many actual legislators this time around because the House of Representatives was just out and the Senate was super busy voting on something. So most of our discussions were actually with young people. I want to say median age 27, 28, right? Who are like these legislative aides. And the thing that amazed me most, which Scott Brody had told me about it, but I didn't believe it. But they all went to camp. All these people I talked to went to camp, which was like mind-blowing to me. So,
well, my very first visit was with Andy from North Star that you're talking about, with his House of Representative person who is camper was her aide. And so we got to meet her, we got to do the picture with her and do the whole thing. And his daughter is very articulate. She was in all his visits that day. So we started off great, but then most of the other visits, I had 5 or 6, were with the aides. I did get almost run over by my senator. She's in a wheelchair and she speeds at 90 miles an hour. And we had to jump out of the way a couple times, but it was a lot of fun. It was very interesting.
Oh, I know who that senator is. She's very impressive. I've actually seen a lot about her. And they really wanted to talk to us, which was interesting, right? Because I'm sure that people set up meetings with these folks all the time, but they're not camp people. I'm sure the most of their meetings are with pharmaceutical people and tobacco people and a bunch of jerky people pushing issues that they really don't necessarily want to hear, but they have to. And these people, they were so eager to talk camp.
The
And
only one I had that hadn't been to camp was from India. So we invited him to camp this summer. We'll see if we can get him out there.
yeah,
But
so the big ask that we had was this legislation that had been passed by the House and the Senate about giving us camp professionals access to national background checks, to the national records out there. And it really is, it's been stuck in the mud in the Justice Department. So we've been trying to get them to sign onto a letter to push that thing through. We're hoping that happens. But interestingly, when I got there, I spoke to Scott Brody, and so I got there on Wednesday, and he had just spent the morning at the White House because they pulled him in because the lobbyists for the ACA national group called Scott and said, we need to get to the White House right now because a bill just went through that had been not it hadn't gone through. It had been sitting around for a few years, but basically it was a bill that says that any organization that utilizes national parks has to pay minimum wage, has to pay $15 an hour. Doesn't matter if you're exempt federally, anybody that's using it, renting it, whatever, has to pay $15 an hour. Turns out there's over 200 camps that take place on national grounds that would be subjected to that. And it's passed. So he was working with, the White House on figuring out how to work through this for the summer. Well, holy cannolis, what a situation that is.
the other issue we were talking about is workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. So they don't always consider us part of the youth development group, and they really should. So just getting our names out there more, that when you're talking workforce, camps are hiring, what was it, 1 million over the nation of high school and college students? So we definitely needed to be considered along with that. And someone in Illinois just got the same thing, had just passed for the Quad Cities, something to do with
Yeah.
workforce training. So that
So
was pretty cool.
so when we got there, they did an orientation for all the people that were there. And one of the couple of people that presented to us were from the University of Michigan that just finished an economic impact study for the camp industry that is going to be released May 21st. So by the time you're hearing this, it's probably going to be out and it'll be in your inbox. I'll link to it. It's going to be really extensive, 400 pages kind of thing. And it goes down to every single state. And I can just tell you the New Jersey one, I couldn't believe it. We're talking 56,000 camp industry workers with a total economic impact of over $1 billion, and camps that pay $336 million in taxes, right? Pretty darn impressive what camps do. And then on a national level, they came up with the number now that 26 million kids go to camp. Now, I think that number is bigger than we're used to hearing, which is, by the way, it's about half of the school-age children that are out there, because the study really took into account any summer program that is considered, out of school summer program kind of thing. I think in the past, a lot of these studies have tried to picture camps that look like a quintessential camp, like the one in the background that I'm sitting on right now. But really, Sam and I, when we go to ACA National and we do our little day camp, roundtable thing, you could count on one hand the amount of traditional camps. That most camps now, especially day camps, are non-traditional and are now part of that number. And it's a big number. And when
Yeah.
you walk into a legislative office, it gives you a lot of power because we're influencing so many people and impacting their economy.
I think it's hard to quantify sometimes too, because I know there's a lot of Park District small day camp programs out there that aren't getting the word out that they're in our industry. So I think now that we've got the impact study this year, as they go forward with data, it's going to get more accurate, I think, as we go forward, and people will buy into it so
Yeah.
that they're being heard.
Yeah. And what I got out of this is I've been hearing for the last 10, 20 years, oh, the camp industry, we need to be at the table. We need to be at the table with with the education people and this and that, right? I think we are.
Yep.
And I got to tip my hat to Scott Brody, Andy Schlensky, and all the people over the years who have really put the rubber to the road on this and dedicated themselves to this. Jonathan Gold and I, we do a lot on the state level, and thank goodness for our lobbyists who just helped us out on a big thing that we were stuck under. But federal is important too. It really is, because you can make big sweeping changes on a federal level about some things. And it's nice going to Capitol Hill. It's very cool.
Yeah. In the bios that we had for each representative, they talked about after school. Well, hello, we
Yeah.
are part of the, out of school hours.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they always think of us that way.
Well, and in Biden's last what you call it, his address to the nation, the State of the Union, he actually mentioned out of school learning, which was a big win in the recognition of that. And like I said, I couldn't believe how these aides were just talking camp with us. That were just so happy. The last guy I spoke to, he was in Boy Scouts his whole life, all the way up to being a program director at a Boy Scout camp, and now he's literally writing policy for Andy Kim, who's a House of Representatives, soon to be a senator in New Jersey, about youth development, about helping young people, because it means so much to him because of his camp experience. So it's out there. It's good. All right, so we're going to go through some of the episodes, but first we're going to give a shout out to AM Skyer, right? Because they are the leading insurance and strategic partner for many of the finest camps in America. AM Skyer partners with camps to provide public relations, legal, medical, behavioral support, and more. Man, they really do a great job. And, there's so many businesses, across the country, and that are summer camps. And regardless of what shape and size they are, insurance is just so important. And most camps don't have a department to handle legal, a department to handle public relations, a department to handle medical, and that kind of thing. We sort of wear all these different hats, and AM Skyer is an unbelievable partner in helping us navigate those waters. So when issues and questions arise, including one that we'll get to soon about supporting our staff, to be able to get like real, legit legal advice is so nice, especially when it's not $450 an hour. So when it's part of your insurance bill. So check out the AM Skyer difference at amskyer.com. Oh, my last Skyer read of the season. How sad. All right, Sam. So going back to the season, we started off with our friend Kelly Jones out there. Always great to have her. And I just want to give a shout out to the Wake Day Camp folks, my friends out there. Every 2 weeks, we get on a Zoom with each other. Ryan Rosen helps moderate it and keep it together. And all these great personalities like Jeff Gamble and these great people. It's been such a supportive group. I got into this group because of the pandemic, really. They were like a little support group, and now I've kept with them. So, I think it's like $300 a month, and the first year is free. You guys should check out the Western Association of Independent Camps. Okay, my man Howie in Toronto is a member. All right, it's a good crew. Then we did the crisis management with your buddies Dave and Joel from Chicago, and Dave, who we spent time with in
Right.
in
Yeah, he said
Washington.
now he gets lots of people asking him what to do in those situations. He had a friend whose business ended up in some sort of thing like that, and they came to him because he'd gone through it. So unfortunately, it's a terrible subject, but it was probably one of the most needed because it's something people don't like to talk about. But
Yeah.
you need to be ready.
Yeah, next season, we're definitely going to have on an expert in that, because I saw this tremendous presenter who runs a security company at the CODA conference in New Orleans. And this guy, woo, he's going to blow your mind, scare the crap out of you, will blow your mind. He will be on next year, no doubt. And I just want to give a shout out to Dave Tenson. We were hanging out at the bar on this past Thursday night in Washington, D.C. And man, just what a great mind. He's just such a great business mind and just so savvy. And he was telling me about his referral programs for his staff, how, you get a shirt, you get a shirt for this year, a shirt for that year, kind of things, and MVP stuff. But the thing I really took away from it, that I'm going to steal from him and use for next year, is first referral, staff referral, $100. second referral 200, third referral 300, fourth referral 400, and just move it up like that. He was talking about many of his staff that made $700-800 for that kind of thing, and it's like just the right amount of incentive to push people. So thank you for that tidbit, Dave.
Does he give
Every
them
time I hang out with Dave, it's like I'm on a day camp pod.
does he give them the money before or after the camp season's over? Do they have to prove themselves first?
Well, my guess is at the end, the way that I frame it is that the staff that you're referring has to have made it through summer,
Okay,
right? You ain't getting $400 for somebody that didn't make it through orientation. You know, they got to make
right.
it to the last day.
And they're pretty good about they don't want to give somebody that's going to embarrass them.
Yeah,
That's not going to
yeah.
be up to quality.
Mm-hmm.
So
The next episode we had was, I think Matt told us that it was our highest downloaded episode of the season. It was the staff experience with Jack Schott and Justin Pritikin, to which I have to say I got a lot of emails and text messages from my friends that said, I don't like the way that your son talks to you. I thought was true.
well,
Funny.
you're both very much alike.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody saw one of Justin's sessions at Tri-State and came up to him and said, I didn't even know that was your dad. I thought it was your brother because you're calling him Andrew. Andy. But that did spark a whole lot of conversations about the staff experience. And, you know, and even though I was being a devil's advocate and I was busting their chops, talking about how, look, we have way more support than we've had for them. We're making the job easier for them. We're paying them more, right? All that stuff. I think that if you read Jonathan Haidt's book and you even listen to Justin's session and other experts in the field, it's, you know, these young people are wired differently. They've come out of things differently, and it's just not the same person from 10, 20 years ago. And it
Yeah.
is what it is, and they're awesome in so many ways. I was talking to Emily Galinsky about this because she gave a session about this at Tri-State. You know, these are unique individuals, and we just have to, you know, be sympathetic, and we can still be demanding, but we also have to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are because they're different.
Yep. It was fun to listen to those two. Both of those guys, their minds are clicking really fast. It's, it's fun
Yeah,
to listen to them.
definitely smart, thoughtful guys. The next one could be my favorite. Michael Brandwein. Grout is great. You know, if you're thinking that day camp is just about the actual activity periods, then you are wrong. That is an episode I'm going to listen to every year to just refresh my brain about the importance and how to translate to my staff the importance of the in-between time.
And every time I hear him, he's got some new information and a new way to frame it. And so he's never boring. I may have heard maybe the same subject over and over, but it's always got something fresh and something new worth listening to.
Yeah.
So
You
good
know,
reminder.
when I was the Tri-State program chair, I brought, you know, of course, Michael was like the big fish, you know, that we brought in. And the way that he handles it, he's like, so what do you want me to talk about? And I'm like, I don't know, Michael, what are you working on? He's like, no. What do you want me to talk about? Because I'm building it from scratch and all that kind of thing. And, you know, watching Michael present, he's so manic and amazing. And you know, these 10-page booklets, two-sided fill in the blank things, right? And I was like, you know what would be great, Michael? I would love for you to do a session about giving a session, about presenting.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah,
telling you, Sam, it was one of the best workshops I ever saw. It
that's
was so
awesome.
insightful because he's so intentional about it, you know?
Yeah.
He's a little neurotic, he's very type A, and he practices in front of a mirror
Yeah.
and he memorizes the first 10 minutes and
And
he just comes out like a right.
when I worked with him at Day Camp Pod at Mid-States, when we did that whole day camp day, he and I, he would have me practice over and over the little bits that you do in between that seem spontaneous, but we do it and he'd go again, and we do it again, until he felt like it was
Yeah,
perfect.
he's got a
So,
theater background,
yeah,
you know, so that's how it's a performance for him.
yep,
The content is important, but the presentation of it is equally as important,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's why he's awesome. We
Yep.
love you, Michael. The next episode was with Travis Allison and Joanna Warren Smith about their awesome new book about camper recruitment and retention. For those of you who are, within your first 5 years of running a camp, to me, you have to have this book. For those of you doing it longer, I can tell you that I have a copy and I learn things because it's all stuff that for veteran people we do, but it's nice to see it actually written out.
I have lots of little sticky notes on mine sticking out the sides, and it's on my desk because there's a lot of little nuggets in there.
Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap it up with the 2024 ones in a second. But first, a shout out to Commercial Recreation Specialists, CRS. They are your go-to source for recreation solutions that will ensure that your camp thrives. Explore their website at crs4rec.com. They have so many cool things. I just got a whole bunch of disc golf things, old school, right? We're not talking about splash pads here, we're talking disc golf. All right. They also have mini golf if we're on a golf kick right here. Yeah, so it's not just, these $50,000, $100,000 items. They got these small things too. The prime carts are pretty affordable. And if you have a water thing like a pond, a lake, or even in your pools, they have these power paddlers, which little kids love. They just sit in those things. You ever seen those things, Sam? You got your little lake there. They twist them around with their arms. Yeah, love those. So anyway, CRS is serious about fun. You understand? All right, so my last CRS plug of the year. All right, so next up we had, I love this one, talking about parents at camp, right? Sam, I don't know about you, but like at least once every few weeks, somebody's like, how much do you pay your parents? What deal do you give your parents?
Yeah.
You make them pay, it is a very, very interesting thing because having good experienced people is important. And, I just went through a moment here at Liberty Lake. So Liberty Lake fills up. So in order for us to be able to take on parents that have kids, I have to leave spots in my groups available. And I'm now towards the end of my hiring process. So I just told Joe, my administration director, I was like, Joe, release the hounds. You can release the last ones. So all these people on the wait list are like, yeah, you got to come to camp now. Because I save it because I don't want to hire some great person and that person say, well, I got 2 kids, they need to come to camp. I need to have the spots for them.
Right. And we were talking on that episode, there's some really good things about having your parents at camp, and there's some that are a little hard to work around,
Yeah.
because they're torn between their own kids being there. If something happens to them in the other area while they're running a different area, but it's worth it. It's
Yeah.
definitely worth it.
Yeah. And just a couple of like golden rules in there. Like, don't like you got to explain to them we're going to treat your kids just like any other paying customer. So you need to treat the staff who's caring for your kids like you're a paying customer, which means you're not going to go up to them in the middle of their lunch and start harassing them about something that your kid told you last night, right? You're going to talk to them after camp the same way that a regular parent would, or just be super, super courteous about it. Because the last thing we want is the counselors of these kids looking over their shoulder every 2 seconds and being like, oh no, there's Mrs. Thompson. Oh boy.
You've got to be confident to take on another person's child that's going to be right there with you.
Yeah. And if you go to that's episode 98. If you go to the show notes, I did post a PDF of the letter that I send out to my camp parents so that they sort of understand the expectations, because I think that's important too. You can't just
Absolutely.
assume they know what to do, especially somebody who's never worked at a camp before.
Right.
I think when I first started becoming a camp director, I realized quickly, like I hire a parent that had never been to camp before, and she's like, oh, and she just sits down at lunchtime next to their kid, needs lunch. And I'm just like, oh boy, I guess I never mentioned that. Do that.
Yeah. Or they bring snacks when there's not snack time, and they give them a can of pop and they're not supposed to have pop. Yep.
Yep.
All
Love the way you say pop. What a Chicago thing. When I visited Banner Day Camp 25 years ago, and Brad Schwartz was giving me the tour, he was giving me all the pop machines that he had there. Check it out. I think he told me that Banner Day Camp was the #1 purveyor of Coca-Cola products during the months of July and August in greater Chicago. Yeah.
What do you call it? Soda?
Heck yeah.
I thought that was a Minnesota thing.
So you thought that soda was Minnesota? I thought
Yeah.
pop was Minnesota.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know. Let's get Kelly Schooner. Love Kelly Schooner. All right. So the next one was the full-time pipeline and transitioning leadership with Sam Bork and Greg Licht. And oh my gosh, I think we should, Sam, when we retire, we should just let them run the day camp pod because that was super engaging. They
It
are
was funny.
quite a dynamic duo. And yeah, that one, the feedback that I got on that from the young folks, from the Gen Z folks, was that the first 15 minutes made them want to rip their eyeballs out because we sounded like a whole bunch of grumpy old men telling them, kids these days. But then it got really good. They all said, but then it got really good. I thought the whole thing was good personally, but
That's funny.
that's that. And then the next episode was Random Acts of Ice Cream, which I know so many camps that are utilizing ideas from this episode. That was episode 100. Wow, what a great episode to be 100.
Yeah.
Super memorable. This little YMCA day camp in Tampa doing such cool progressive idea things with their staff. Man, I have to hand it to Dave and Megan. Really, really so, really great. People want to talk about stuff all the time, incentivizing your staff, rewarding your staff, right? That one slides right into Justin's messaging, about
They had,
individualizing
they had great
your rewards.
ideas.
Maximizing use of your summer staff with Tom Coffey and Matt Kaufman. That one we were talking about how to get your staff to do double duty and stuff like that. So you don't have to necessarily hire the 90 lifeguards that Matt Kaufman has, although he has nine pools and a lake. So no shade at Matt and the Ramacoy people. They do amazing work there. Holy cannolis, what you can do if you are able to. Wow, that place really pushes the limits.
Though I
But
did have to bring in Justin's thing about not overburdening your staff because we were getting toward the edge of maximizing was, without killing your staff. So
yeah, but they do a lot of I found fascinating with those two was the creating unique little jobs for the in-between things. Running a camp, there's so many in-between things, and instead of the directors losing their mind and wearing 600 hats, how about you pay somebody $300 more and you give it to them, and then you're giving them some ownership, some leadership, and yeah, and then
Yeah.
taking it off of your shoulders.
yeah, they don't want the downtime if they're already there and working.
Right. I had a visitor to my camp yesterday, a camp director, and I was explaining to him about how I train my regular staff to be lifeguards, how I train my regular staff to do high ropes and all that kind of thing. And he was just, he loved that concept. But I've hired 2 people this year from sleepaway camps, small sleepaway camps with like staff of 100 or less, and they cross train everybody at those camps. Every staff person at these sleepaway camps is lifeguard certified, high ropes trained. Some camps, when Justin was at Camp Champions, he got archery trained, riflery trained, right? They are not a small place.
Yeah.
But as a specialist, he was cross trained like that. So I think that we can learn a lot from that kind of thing.
I do have mine do canoeing training and archery training ahead of time and bring me their certificates.
That's great. I remember I go to the resident camp conference tours at ACA in the Northeast every year, and we visited this great nonprofit YMCA sleepaway camp up maybe in New Hampshire, Camp Coniston, legendary YMCA camp. And interesting takeaway from them was their CIT program. They make the kids come for 8 weeks, okay, and every 2 weeks they do a different aspect of the camp. So they break the CITs into 4. Okay, so this 2 weeks, we're going to train you to be a lifeguard. You're going to work as a lifeguard. These 2 weeks, you're working in the kitchen. These 2 weeks, you're assisting at a specialist area, right? That kind of thing. So they're super cross-trained. So they finish that CIT year, and if they want to come back next year, they know all these different aspects of camp and have
Very
spent time with them.
hireable.
Yeah, very
It's gonna
hireable.
go
Yeah.
really well on a resume.
It reminds me of the European educational system now that I have a guy named Boogie working for me from Germany, in which in Europe, they graduate high school, they choose a career path, and then for the next 6 years, they alternate between working and going to school, like 3 months of this, 3 months of that, or 6 months. And then when they graduate after 6 years, they have a full-time job, they have very little debt, if any, and they're all
Nice.
trained up, right? They got their college degree. So it reminded me of that. But anyway,
That's a great idea.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, this was to me the very interesting topic because we had heard this. We presented a tri-state and this thing came up like, what do you do with your staff that have additional needs, right? So we were inspired to bring in Allison Crable and Jordana Grossinger to talk about this, and it was a very, very interesting conversation. And it brought up some, in a way, like controversial kind of things because, in the middle of it, I said sort of offhandedly as a joke, I was like, wow, I wonder if like if the professionals right now listening to us, like lawyers and nurses and things like that would be like cringing, about, us doing this for our people. Because as I thought, because I ended up talking to, medical staff. I talked to, um, what's it, Tracy Gaslin from the Alliance of Camp Health. I talked to my insurance company lawyer. I talked to a labor lawyer that sent their kids to my camp. And I talked to my HR consultant. And I asked them all these kinds of questions. And they were like, you got to be so careful about this kind of thing. Um, she said, first of all, it has to be the employee that is asking for accommodations. You can't be asking them if they want accommodations. Like that right there is the first like breach that we have to be careful of. Um, we talked about how a lot of the things that are ACA standards or are basic things that are in your health forms are not even necessarily legal. And at a day camp, your health history is really almost voluntary for a staff. It's not like a camper. So you want your health histories, but really why you want your health histories is in case there's an emergency and an ambulance comes and you're handing off that information. It's not for your medical staff to be going through and seeing
Right.
what meds your staff's on and things like that.
Although, if we need to know if they're taking meds, mine drug test. So I have
Mhm.
to know if they're on prescription medicine because when we drug test, it's going to show up if especially if they're taking it
Sure,
during the day.
sure. And look,
Yeah.
marijuana is legal. You could probably get a prescription for that now too. But yeah, there's a lot of gray area. There is a lot of gray area in this, no doubt about it. And camps live in this gray area. Um, one thing that I did is I went into my health history on CampMinder where they sort of sign off like the terms and conditions on it, and I changed it because I wanted them to know that they're giving me this information. I'm not sharing it willy-nilly, that it's just for my nursing staff, really,
Right.
to look at in case of emergency. If you got a job at Burger King or whatever, they're not going through your medical records, okay? You're hired and that's just what it is. And you agree that you can do the job and that's what it is. And if you can't, then you can't, and then you don't work there anymore. Um,
Right.
but we're so used to being nice and coddling our people. Um, you
I
know,
had a girl today, well, her coach called me because she's in a job coaching, she's Down syndrome. She's in a job coaching thing. She used to come to camp. She wants to work camp with her coach.
mhm.
But the coach explained to me that she's only there in the beginning and then she would step out. So there's a whole many layers of things that go with that. Luckily, we're already full this year, so I don't have to sort through that till fall because she's going to try for my after school program and
Yeah.
see what we can do. But anyway, so
Yeah. So some other pointers I have here. I said it before, it's absolutely the employee's responsibility to ask for reasonable accommodation. All right. We're stepping into dangerous waters if we ask a staff member about information that they disclose in their health history or badger them about our opinion, right? If they're a former camper and we know stuff, like that's tricky, very, very tricky. To quote the labor lawyer who sends her kids to my camp, it's a fine line to walk because camps want to be loving and kind and helpful. I still think there are ways to broach the subject without getting in trouble, like generally asking, is there anything the camp can do to support a particular staff member or to make their summer successful? That's how you have to frame it, like that, right? And just, keep this information confidential.
yeah,
Very important, right?
they did have some good check in the show notes for that. They
Mhm.
had some good handouts on ways people can tell you what helps them if they're stressed out. Just because trying to set up breaks for people. Um, if you're setting up a room for break and you're putting all one kind of thing in there, and that's not what helps them relax. I mean, it was for that purpose. It wasn't so much the medical. So
Yeah.
there are other things in
Oh,
that
heck yeah.
podcast that are
No, it was no,
totally,
no, 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 no. It was that
yeah,
podcast was an awesome podcast. Don't get
yeah,
me wrong. It was a terrific
yeah,
podcast. I just got really, I was like wondering about like the whole accommodations thing. That's where I was really thinking about that,
sure.
for somebody that needs it, right? Especially like we talk about kids with additional needs, then you have staff with additional needs, right?
Right.
It becomes a little tricky thing. But yeah, it's a great podcast. That's 102 with Allison and Jordana. Then we had the bear episode, Yes Chef, with Eric and myself. If you haven't watched the bear, watch the bear because it's such a great show, and you'd really appreciate the session after that. And then the one that just went up was this Jeff Lycan one about teens, which I recommend if you didn't listen to it all the way through, listen to the end because the end is great. Jeff really has some golden shortcuts on how to talk to teens on there, and it was wonderful. Yeah,
Nice.
and then that was it, Sam. We did.
That was it.
This is our sixth season. It's
Oh
our
my
sixth
gosh.
season.
Time flies.
Yeah. And shout out to everybody that's been a part of this and been helping us out, to Tiff and to Erin, from
Yep,
Days Long Gone, and to all our
absolutely.
great guests and being so generous and sharing their tips. I remember, going to my first Tri-State Camp conference with Ben Applebaum, was one of my mentors, and I was like, what is this industry where everybody just gives everybody their secrets? Like, what is going on? And it was just like, hey, you know, people go to camp, families go to camp, they send their kids to camp. We want them to have a good experience because if one kid has a bad experience, they go telling everybody else not going to send their kids to camp. They have a great experience, they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to end up sending their kids to your camp. So it's better that we raise the bar
Right.
everywhere.
Better camping for all.
Better camping for all, right? Which takes us back
Absolutely.
to our trip to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not members of ACA, please know that ACA is doing stuff for you, even though you're not a member, right? They helped get you those PPP loans in 2020, 2021. And besides that, they just are constantly working in Washington, D.C. on small issues that could end up being big issues. That's why we pay a lot of money for these lobbyists. And if you want to be a part of it, check your inbox if you're ACA members next year, because they'll be doing it again. And Sam had mentioned that Angie Slensky brought his daughter. Well, lots of people brought kids, and what a great experience was for them, and also a great photo op for the lawmakers. A lot of people brought counselors who were like political science majors that were interested in this thing. So it really made it an awesome experience for them. And to me, it was also it was better representative of what we do. Sam and I walk into an office, okay, so we got these two, middle-aged people coming in. That's nice. But to have like a wide range of ages is super helpful. And all the ACA people, I want to give a shout out to at the national level, and the people like Colette and Alicia from the regional level. Michelle, thank you so much for your hard work.
Andy, I don't know if you've ever been asked this, but it used to be when I said I was in camping, people would go like RVs.
Oh yeah.
So the more we get the word out, the less we'll get asked that question.
Yeah. Well, history lesson. I don't know, it was probably around 20 years ago. Marla Coleman was the president of ACA National. We hired a PR firm, and they changed the American Camping Association to the American Camp Association
Yeah.
because of that being the number one reason that people were thinking RV parks whenever we said we were in camping.
Yeah.
So now we're in summer camp. That's why we got to say it. But we can't even say summer because there's camp programs that aren't in the summer too.
Right.
Right.
Our definition keeps widening.
Yep. Yep. The tent keeps getting bigger, which is all right with me. So for the last time this season, until September, we want to thank AM Skyer, commercial recreation specialists, and I'll even give a shout out to Camp Tid-Bits because they were a sponsor of the first half for allowing us to bring this podcast to you. And our buddy Jotham, our editor, who's got a great YouTube channel, by the way. If you like what you hear, you should subscribe to the Day Camp Pod on your favorite podcast platform. Check out our show notes from all our episodes at daycamppodcast.com, as well as contact info for our show, our guests, and for me and Sam Thompson. Thanks for listening and making yourself a better Day Camp Pro. We'll be back in September with another episode of the Day Camp Pod.
Have a great summer.
Woohoo! Kick some ass, everybody.